Let's get straight into it. Like I always try to give people a little bit of a background about what we're speaking about today. And so, yeah, for me, it's about writing. Writing has such an interesting, impactful kind of influence in my life ever since I was young. It's been a way for me to express, it's been a way for me to kind of like get my thoughts out and like kind of get hold of them, you know, and kind of understand them a bit more as I do that. That process of doing really has been integral for me. But what is it like for you? What does writing mean to you? Not just kind of like as a profession, but also as like a emotional thing. How does writing show up for you emotionally?
It definitely feels like an emotional hygiene practice. Now that sounds a little bit sanitized, but really it is so healing. It really balances me in a way that I almost come to the page and I'm not sure what I have to get out, but as I am writing and I saw this amazing quote and it was about journaling and how you're pulling this thread and you don't know where it's going to take you, but you pull it and pull it and pull it. And it's a thread that unravels what you needed to unravel, you know? And so I'm sure a lot of artists can relate to that feeling of being in this like almost manic haze and you just have to like get to the page. You have to get to the canvas. You have to da-da-da-da-da-da. Almost like you are so in the flow that your hands are moving without you even consciously doing it. And you're writing and you're like, oh, I am realizing this and this, and I'm seeing it in a different perspective. And I journal a lot. I really love journaling. Sometimes with prompts, sometimes just free flow, stream of consciousness. You start off like, well, I haven't written my diary since last week. Why haven't I done that? And then you just, you let all of the random little bits and bobs come out and you're like, and then I had a coffee with this person and then I saw a dead fox and that was sad. And somehow your own mind will just take you to where you need to be. Like when you are honest and give yourself that space. And it's almost mysterious. Like I could be journaling and then I'm like, okay, I'm starting to rhyme and a poem's coming out. And other times I'm very like intentional, like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I have this poem idea and I want to tackle it. And perhaps there's very different modes of writing which are so applicable in different ways that it's so hard for me to say like, what does writing as one thing mean to me? Because it feels like it's this act of putting pen to paper and writing it down is the external manifestation of internal processes, and those internal processes can vary so wildly depending on what I'm needing that day. Do I just need to vent? Do I need to write a fuck you letter to somebody that I'm like, okay, it's out, it's there, and I can see them at the next event and I can boom, poise. It's okay, everything's calm, you know? Or do I need to just escape and write something that is completely fictional and fantasy and dissolve into that? Or do I need to face what is real and ask myself, okay, what are you really feeling? What are you really afraid of? Girl, what are you really afraid of?
I love that. I love that. And I love you had the phrase of external manifestation of internal process is so true. I think that's what makes writing, I think even since we first begun doing it, all the way back in the day of capturing words, you know, I think that's what makes it so like important, because it's that as a human being, you don't, so much of your processes are kind of like acted out. So much of your thinking is acted out. You know, if you feel angry, you act angry, but you don't really take time to go internally to get to the root of it, to kind of like really put it apart. Like you were saying, the string, to see how long the string pulls. And I think you are right. You make a really good point that it comes in different forms. And so to look at it as, you know, as a general thing, maybe might be doing a disservice. So let's break it down to chunks and look at it from there.
Okay.
Let's start with journaling then.
Yes.
Journaling is such an interesting way of like kind of like, you know, dealing with yourself, that process of talking to yourself as I found it. But talk to me about journaling and what role has journaling played in your life?
You know, it's such a shame because when I was a child, perhaps this was like one of the first instances of my raging imposter syndrome occurring in my life, but I tore up, I think I was about 11 or 12. I tore up all of my childhood diaries.
No way.
I was like, I was burning, I was raging, I felt so confused in this, like just about to enter adolescence and all of these emotions and feeling like perhaps like a rage at my past self, a hatred, a wanting to erase what had happened, what I had written, and thinking that it wasn't worth anything,
How long had you been writing for until that point? How many years?
I mean, I'd kept a diary like here and there as a kid, like one of those, it has like a heart-shaped lock with a key.
Oh,
like,
wow, that's so cute.
Yeah. And but I feel like this is such a universal human need, Like the other day I saw a little girl writing on the bus and she had drawn a giraffe and she just wrote, "This is a giraffe."
Fair
and
enough.
I was sitting behind and I was like, girl, that is a poem. like you can see the giraffe, but still we have that need to say, this is a giraffe.
Yeah.
Yeah. To affirm it to ourselves as well as to others, to find a way of perspective that can be shared almost. Because I watched this reel, which was crazy. And it was like, try to look at a thing or look at a person and see it without using words, without thinking of words. And it made me think about the ways that language is this magnificent, marvelous tool for us to conceptualize and be able to see this information and manipulate it and add it and subtract it and move it around. But at the same time, how is this word itself limiting? Or like, I mean, you could say all words are labels, right? And then we are constantly pushing against these labels, these identities. Like, how can this be a table, but also comes from a tree? But at what point does the tree stop becoming a tree and becomes a table? And if a table has 4 legs and we take away
It doesn't
the
become a
legs,
table anymore.
but then you have
Absolutely.
tables with 1 leg. You have tables which are circular, and you also have times tables.
Completely different thing.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting point there. And I want to linger on that point then, because you are right. And I think of this too. There's another quote that comes to mind when you say that. To me, it's like the limits of your language is the limits of your world. And I think that's so important, because it's like, it talks about like, oh, if you can't ascribe definitions to poetry or to peace or to love or to anything, these feelings, if you can't verbalize it, if you can't understand it through language, then you really can't understand it as an emotion or as a thing within themselves. And like, at what point, like you were saying, at what point does understanding these things manifest them and make them become it, I also think that a lot of language is used to kind of understand ourselves, but I'm wondering for you if language does that initially. So when you do journal, is it a process of understanding yourself, or is it a process of just like, I need to get it out? Does it help you get over the emotion or whatever you're going through? Or does it just help you state it, and then getting through it is like a process of just like time? How does that show up for you? How does language actually help you, or writing actually help you get through stuff?
It almost feels like magic, that every feeling, every action, every conversation, everything that we do in life can dissolve and disappear. And we have, like, think about how many thoughts we've had in our entire life.
Quite a
And
few.
how many thoughts do we remember? Like, it's about memory. It's about temporality, like recording your thoughts as you're sitting down to journal, and then rereading them and being like, wait, 15 minutes have passed and the world is kind of different now because I journaled. And it is that bizarre sense of being yourself, but also being able to have this step back from yourself to look at what you were. And God, like perhaps there is something to be said about not being in the present moment and trying to hold on to the past and to make sense of it, perhaps. But then at the same time, that is so necessary in the present for me to look at the past and be like, okay, how do I want to move forward? You know, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes journaling doesn't work. And I do just have to go out and have a glass of wine and have a cry and have my good friends just be like, yeah, that was pretty shit. That person you dated or that job or this or that, you know, and it's how to take care of a human being. God, how to take care of a mind, a heart, a body, a soul. How to eat 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
How did my parents do this? Like at my age, like I think children would die if somebody handed me a baby like right now. I love babies. I'd read books. I'd educate myself. But like
you figure it out. You figure it out. I think that's kind of the process, right? Like
you rise to the
occasion. It's so funny when you're mentioning about like, because I think what you're describing is the process of being, but also writing helps that infuse that with becoming. Being and becoming. I wrote a poem about that and I think it's so true. It's like both of them have to happen at the same time. I think writing is such an interesting way to do that because, you know, kind of coming a little bit into poetry, when I look at my poems, I'm surprised sometimes. I'm surprised almost all the time. Where did this come from? I don't exist in a world, or my language when I'm speaking to people isn't the same as my voice when I'm writing, you know?
Oh, I feel that. Yeah.
You know, but that is a part, like I have a line, it was like, I decided to rise to the language or to the voice in my poetry, you know, because it is that, because over time you start to see a different version of you, a more understanding, a more empathetic, a more like, you know, even to yourself, which is like such a different way of existing when you start like looking at yourself as this project, you know, as it's always also, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, as like you are not just a poem. You know, that I think that's what poets do so well. They treat themselves as a poet, as a poem. So it's like a process of ongoing change, and they don't judge any version of themselves, and they integrate all of it. I think that becomes an ongoing thing where you kind of have to get into that mode of. I think everyone can do this. I think writers just have the. I was going to say have the courage, but I don't think it's courage. I think we just can't help it. They have to write it down. It's the impulse to write it down and to like share it and to like kind of have that relationship, and I think it's so important. I know you got something to say to that. So as a reply, but also as a next question to that is take us back a little bit. How did you get involved with writing? Some people want people to understand that this isn't just a thing that just comes together. You know, it's a process of like. Internally and then also externally. So what was that process like for you? How did your internal musings in your world start to have an external manifestation?